We're joined by the editor-in-chief of Racket News, Matt Taibbi. Matt, always great to see you, and thank you for making the time for us. Back in May of 2016, during the Obama administration, CNN got an exclusive ride-along with ICE. Watch.
Just before the sun rises in the Windy City, Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents fan out across Chicago.
You have evidence, right, that he's using a fake identity, or?
That is correct. We believe he's been using a U.S. citizen's identity to live and work. He has an Illinois driver's license.
What do you think about what ICE is doing to get criminal undocumented immigrants off the street?
That's good. We really appreciate that because, I mean, sometimes they get people that they're not doing anything. And we come over here for the same reason, to work.
The piece, Matt, was overwhelmingly positive. 10 years later, this is how the media feels about ICE. Watch this.
This is not an administration that's focused on deportation. This is an administration that's focused on punishment, that's focused on trying to scare the American public. And these ICE agents are just there to kind of be part of that propaganda.
We don't believe that it's law enforcement. We believe it is state-sponsored terrorism.
We do not need you. You're not welcome. And you need to get the hell out of our community.
Matt, what's changed?
This is very strange to me. I mean, I wrote a book and significantly covered the immigration question back in the Obama years. And so many of the practices that I now hear being described as unprecedented are things that we knew were common 10 or 15 years ago. Things like people being pulled off the streets and never seeing their families again, stopping cars to check people's immigration status. That was going on in Los Angeles. That was going on in Georgia. It was going on all over the country. And there were record numbers of people being deported at a time when it was popular. And now it isn't. And I think, the main difference is that Donald Trump is president.
Is it as simple as the press just wanting to support the open border policy of the far left? Or is it about, at this point now, 10 years later, you stoke division for ratings and for clicks and to placate the algorithm? What are your thoughts?
It's a combination of a lot of things. A lot of news agencies are really reflexively sort of anti-Trump. And so any policy that he's going to undertake is going to get criticism, whether or not they previously supported that policy or not. In this case, I think the ICE deportation policy, what makes it different is the scale of it. Maybe the fact that the agents are masked and there are more of them on the streets, so they're more visible. But apart from that, these are exactly the same policies that have been in place in the United States for 20 years. And it's just that it wasn't reported on as much.
Yeah, well, and the law hasn't changed. I mean, at the end of the day, they're enforcing laws that have been on the books for a very long time. Matt, what do you think of the independent journalists who are out there today because of the media's refusal to be balanced on this? Folks like Frank Scales, who was just here, and his team, Nate Friedman and Nick Shirley. It seems like we've now moved into a new era to try to go around some of this bias.
Undoubtedly, the conventional legacy media has lost a lot of confidence. The media is a trust business. When you make a lot of mistakes or when the audiences can tell ahead of time what you're going to say about anything, they will tune you out. And right now, there are two different things going on. People are leaving because they're tired of the politicized content, but they're also leaving because they're tired of the facts turning out to be wrong. And so they're going to independent journalists. Now, not all of them, have great records on that second point either. But they're at least independent and less predictable, and so they're going to get a lot of audience. I mean, that's inevitable, and frankly, that's how American journalism has always worked. We innovate in these moments and persevere.
After COVID, misinformation, that's one of the things I know that certainly you reported on and you talked about a lot. George Floyd, the claims that the border was under control and the border was closed. Do you think Americans are starting to wise up, or is this narrative like we see from the media about ICE? Do you think that it is still as powerful as it used to be?
I think the summer of 2020 was the high point of the conventional kind of legacy media's ability to completely dominate the discourse around the country. Now there's some hesitation. You see that there are people who want to make Renee Good, a quasi-religious figure in the same way that George Floyd was in 2020, but it's not really getting the same traction as it did previously. It's a very different kind of case. I wrote books about police abuse, and I'm shocked at the people who don't see the difference between this case and, for instance, a case like Eric Garner. But that's what's happened. I don't think they have the same ability to shape the dialogue as they did 4 years ago or 5 years ago.
More and more people using social media platforms to get their news, Matt, and form their opinions from what they're scrolling through online. But a lot of that rhetoric is turning violent as well. Take a look at this.
Urge everyone who sees this video to bear arms and practice your Second Amendment right.
Mind their business. Boo! That's how we need to start doing them.
We're not gonna go get justice. We're gonna go get revenge. We're gonna round up a whole lot of.
Hey, if you're an ICE agent, this might be a good time to kiss your spouse and kids goodbye, because you know what? You might not be coming home tomorrow.
I'm trying to figure out why we're not shooting them.
Matt, how do media outlets, such as they are, compete with that? Compete with social media and the algorithm that is pushing a specific narrative to far more people right now than are watching the network newscasts or watching cable.
Yeah, well, that's one of the problems, and look, frankly, this goes on in both directions. But the fact is that the strongly argued take on social media with a very controversial or provocative point of view is going to get more hits than the nuanced, well-argued, piece of journalism that asks people to consider things from both perspectives. Right now, in the way these algorithms work, they want people to go to a continually smaller and more radical place in their political journey. And, that system is not, I think it's not positive for the country, but I don't know exactly what the way out is, because eventually audiences will lose trust in these folks too. And we're just not in that place yet.
You've garnered a lot of trust with your reporting and the way that you've handled yourself over these last number of years. What's your advice?
I think, again, it's a trust business. You have to, when you make mistakes, you have to admit them. You have to try to be factually accurate as much as possible. You have to try to consider all the angles to the story. You have to be willing to take criticism for saying something unpopular or quoting somebody who has an unpopular opinion. And unfortunately, all the incentives in media and on social media go in the other direction right now. They don't reward you for that sort of thing.
Hopefully with TikTok being now owned by an American company, or being owned by American investors, and the algorithm under control of hopefully some more sober-minded people who are certainly not communists, some of that will be dealt with. Matt Taibbi, really appreciate your analysis here, and keep up all the great work. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.